So thank you for attending. I think it's just what you need at the end of the day, a guy keep you from the pub talking about compliance. But anyway, please bear with me. I've got a little tape I want to play. Oh, I did have a tape I can play. What happened there? Oh dear. Yes, compliance. Things go wrong. Yes, anyway. So, hello everyone, my name is Matthew Caplan. I'm a security advisor for Orange Cyber Defence. And this presentation is built on the 3Ms principle of movies, music, and moggies. Cybersecurity compliance can be a complex and daunting topic. With a little help of my friends, Talking Heads, other musical influences, as well as my cats, I hope to bring some clarity to this somewhat confusing topic. So what is compliance? Well, it's an organisation's adherence to applicable rules and regulations. It could be a requirement by law in a particular country or a particular industry, or for certification purposes in certain industries, or just to meet contractual commitments. There are many regulations these days to choose from, and you may have to comply with multiple regulations. It's very likely that you will. And this creates additional headaches and workloads for your organisation. The following short movie helps to introduce the topic of compliance.
You may find yourself in another part of the world. You may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile. You may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife. And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? Letting your days go by, let the water hold me up into the blue again. After the party's gone, once in a lifetime, water flowing underground. And you may ask yourself, how do I work this? And you may ask yourself, where is that large automobile? And you may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful house. And you may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful wife. Same as it ever was. 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 And the days go by, water flowing underground into the blue again. After the party's gone, once in a lifetime, water flowing underground. You may ask yourself, what is that beautiful house? You may ask yourself, where does that highway go to? And you may ask yourself, am I right? Am I wrong? And you may say to yourself, my God, what have I done?
So, wherever you are in the world, you may find yourself bogged down with complex regulatory requirements. And these can be difficult to understand, as often written in complicated language, with regulators seemingly speaking in tongues. As a result, organisations may struggle to interpret and apply these regulations, and it can be seen to be stifling innovation and slow down the operations of your organisation. There are many regulations coming at you from all directions these days. Some of these are industry or situation specific, such as SWIFT for the bank payments. You now need to be compliant with a SWIFT cybersecurity program to use that service. There's TSAX for the automotive industry and its supply chain. PCI was recently updated to version 4 with new requirements for car payments. TSA and IOSA for the airlines and airports. DORA for finance and HIPAA for healthcare. And then there's more wide-ranging regulations such as GDPR, which seems like it's been around for a while now, but hasn't gone away. With 7 out of 10 countries now having similar privacy regulations, there's no escaping wherever you are in the world. And then there's NIS2, which came into effect last year, aimed at strengthening the critical infrastructure and the security of the European Union. It's estimated that over 150,000 organisations are in scope for this wide-ranging regulation. I'll focus on three challenges which are currently driving the compliance landscape, all of which that overlap somewhat. There's AI, digital sovereignty, and supply chain. I'll start with artificial intelligence, since you can't really do a talk these days without talking about AI.
See, that's me, myself, and I.
So AI and automation no doubt has great benefits, but it it creates risks because it quite often means you're moving and transferring data outside of your organization. The use of automation and AI is enabling cyber criminals to launch attacks at scale, increasing the frequency and the impact of those cyber attacks, but it's also helping to defend against those attacks. So, like a lot of technologies, AI is a double-edged sword. And like all other technologies, it needs to be introduced with suitable controls and guardrails. With that in mind, the European Union has brought in the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act, the EU AI, and this is aimed at ensuring protection of consumers by prohibiting harmful AI, making those who create and distribute AI accountable, and as part of a trend focusing on third parties. It takes a risk-based approach, and you could be in scope even if you're not in the European Union. And there's always a potential for over-regulation, and the intention actually was to promote innovation, but because it places an unnecessary burden on artificial intelligence developers and smaller companies, it could actually have the opposite effect. There will be some enforcement challenges because of the broad definition. Certain terms like harmful AI are not that well defined, and the global nature of AI means that enforcing that could be difficult. Moving on to data sovereignty, the control over data is becoming a battleground in 2025, and the principle of data sovereignty is that data stored within a country should follow that country's laws. Businesses are demanding more transparency, and they want to know where their data is. Geopolitical uncertainties means more and more questions are being asked about who has your data. And with this in mind, the cloud providers are already responding with localized cloud offerings. Talking of third-party relationships continue to expand as organizations seek help to do what they cannot do for themselves and create new opportunities. And consequently, threat services have expanded, leading to more attacks on third parties, with over half of all security incidents now being third-party related, and 98% of organizations being connected to a third party that's been breached in the past few years. Regulations such as NIS2 and DORA have increased the focus on third parties, and one important principle here is that you cannot outsource liability. Whilst you have someone to blame when things go wrong, it still comes back and affects you, and the regulators won't accept the excuse that we trusted our vendor to take care of things when services fail or data is compromised. And one good news is that your managers now could be liable for infringements, could end up in jail. These topics all converge with compliance in the form of digital trust. And digital trust is the confidence that people have the ability of organizations to protect their data whilst upholding certain societal values. It helps people feel safe using an organization's product or services, and it's about prioritizing security to protect data. And it's about being open and honest and about how the data is collected and used. According to McKinsey, a recent survey, ethics, trust, personal data is almost important spending criteria as the traditional price, quality, and convenience. So with all of this in mind, what could possibly go wrong when an organization is not compliant? As you can see, non-compliance can lead to devastating consequences. But actually, it's actually a healthy benchmark for good practice and an indicator of quality to interested parties and stakeholders. And it's about achieving cyber resilience and ensuring the availability of services and the protection of information. With cybercrime estimated to cost £8 trillion currently and rising to over £15 trillion by 2027, data is now arguably the world's most valuable resource, overtaking oil. So let's explore some of the consequences of non-compliance further. Services could be unavailable. In the event of a data breach, your systems might be offline for days or even weeks. This costs money. It's estimated that it costs over £4,000 per minute, and that's for downtime. And that cost could increase depending on your organization's size and complexity. The regulatory fines that you could be incurring also will cost you a lot of money if you're found to be non-compliant, and these fines can vary depending on the severity and the nature of the extent of the non-compliance, and you could also be facing multiple fines for breaching multiple compliance. Two of the largest fines issued to date was Chinese firm DD Global, who paid 900 million in fines, and Amazon, 625 million in fines for data breaches and GDPR violations. The cost of the fines, the legal fees, the compensation, all the remediation efforts causes a significant impact on your business, as well as impacting future investments and your credit ratings. Non-compliance could tarnish your reputation and also damage your ability to attract new business. It could lead to loss of customers, with PwC estimating that 80% of organizations will go to a competitor if they don't trust you to handle their data responsibly. And non-compliance can lead to restrictions on accessing the market you operate in or expanding into new markets. And in the worst case scenario, regulatory authorities could revoke or suspend your licenses, meaning you can't operate at all, which could face business closure. So despite presenting the overwhelming case for complying with regulations, I want to talk a little bit about the dilemma between compliance and non-compliance. Some of the benefits of compliance include enhanced security posture. It helps build trust and credibility because it's improved operational efficiency with better processes, and it could help you obtain cyber insurance if that's a requirement of your business. But on the flip side, 40% of organizations said that cyber insurance didn't cover them for all the costs when things did go wrong. And some companies have benefited from the freedom that non-compliance gives them. A fine and all the things that you have to put in place could be, the solutions could cost more. So it's actually worth a bit of cost versus benefit. Compliance can be seen as restricting innovation, and it's risk versus reward. An example is Cambridge Analytica and Facebook. Cambridge Analytica used the data to assist the 2016 presidential campaign of Donald Trump, and that data misuse was disclosed in 2018. Facebook shares dropped as a result, but they very quickly started to recover, and despite paying $5 billion in fines for privacy violations, the total value of Facebook now is $1.6 trillion, which is 4 times the amount it was worth before the scandal. Donald Trump has gone on to be president twice, despite some compliance issues of his own. So the traditional view is that non-compliance is bad, and some organizations will do the absolute minimum and still benefit. But this then depends nowadays on the industry that you operate in, and with many traditionally being much freer than others. With more regulations coming in more countries and more industries, it's getting harder to avoid. So, in my opinion, it's better to try to get things right. Compliance needs to be proven, and it's impossible to discuss compliance without discussing or mentioning audit.
An auditor will arrive shortly.
That's also, I believe, some of the legislation, I guess. I have a similar question about ground emissions. Just to go after that.
Psycho killer, here's Johnny. Nobody expects the Spanish women better. Run, 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 run away. Oh, psycho killer, let's get sick. Run, 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 run. Once they hit again,
One question. Do I feel like what do you talk?
Don't forget about mine.
where's the money? Where's the money?
So despite this dismal view of audit actually could be a healthy benchmark, and it shows what a good job you do to your customers and to your own management. However, it's restricted by a lack of resources in-house quite often, and it's very time-consuming. With a third of all organisations say it takes over a month to produce the necessary audit evidence for a single audit, and most organisations have multiple audits every year. The more audit failures you have means more time and effort, and it's worth noting that an auditor is only as good as the responsiveness of those being audited and the quality and the timeliness of the evidence provided. So you've got two choices: do it far, far, far better, or run away. So far I've talked about what compliance is and the consequences and the challenges. So let's move on to look at some solutions and how to simplify compliance. So it's very confusing with all these different regulations flying around, and rather than going into all the specifics, you wouldn't thank me because you're never going to get to the pub if I do. Note that each regulation has its own set of requirements, yet there's significant overlap between them. So it's important to adopt a unified framework. This makes complying to multiple regulations easier. Most compliance, in fact all of them, all look for risk management processes and governance, suitable organisation in place, controls such as identity access management. There's an increased focus on supply chain, incident response to ensure timely detection, containment and recovery. It's worth aligning to standards such as ISO 27035 and adapting those to your organisation. Resilience testing is increasingly a part of all compliance, with vulnerability scanning, pen testing, business continuity and crisis management testing. And regardless of compliance, it's actually healthy to do these things because it helps you know what's going on within your organisation. Many organisations will tell you what to do, but not how to do it. But they will all point towards adopting best practices such as ISO and NIST for more guidance. Whilst PCI maybe is narrow in focus and the scope, and it's focused on the card data, if you comply overall to a standard like ISO or NIST, it'll get you compliant to the majority of PCI requirements, and then you just need to focus on the specific extras. Simplifying compliance and complexity requires a systematic and strategic approach. Start by gaining an understanding of the regulations that apply to you, and then focus on the key areas that carry the most risk to your business. Establish a governance structure to oversee the implementation of a GRC framework, governance, risk, compliance, to set objectives and provide strategic directions. And remember that compliance is not just for auditors and IT. It's risk management and compliance play a central role, and the regulations touch all aspects of every organisation these days. With business continuity, third-party risk, incident response, they all require some coordination across the business and all departments within a business. If you think it's someone else's job, chances are you're leaving gaps that the regulators and the attackers will notice and exploit. It's important to regularly do employee training and awareness, with human error accounting for 80% of security breaches. It's important to foster a culture of security awareness and compliance. Documentation is always an important part of every compliance. You need to have standard operating procedures and checklists. But it's important to write down what you actually do and follow it, rather than writing down and saying what you think someone wants to see and then doing something different. And it's important to review that documentation regularly. Also, you'll be asked to prove whatever you say you do, so be prepared to have the evidence to support it. Organisations can fail to see risk as an opportunity, and it's worth considering that risk is not the chance or probability of loss, it's the effect of uncertainty on objectives. And uncertainty is actually a positive if you built a resilient organisation around yourself and you're prepared for change. So you need to implement a risk management framework based on a standard like ISO bless you, 27,005. Conduct regular risk assessments to identify, evaluate, and prioritize threats and vulnerabilities. Focus your compliance efforts where they matter most to maximize your limited resources more efficiently. And any solutions that you put in must address a specific risk, otherwise you're just going out and buying toys for the sake of it. And ensure that this actually applies to third parties as well. As mentioned previously, you cannot and should not put all your efforts into eliminating all risk. It's not when, but if, so be prepared. Mitigate and manage the high risks to reduce the blast radius of any attack. As a great philosopher Rocky Balboa said, it ain't about how hard you get hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. If you rely on a single line of defense, an attacker can always get through. I'd like to stress that no cats were harmed in the making of this video or any of my other videos. One cure is the defense in depth, a blend of preventative, detective and corrective controls such as multi-factor authentication, encryption, segmentation. You need the threat intelligence to know what's going out there to anticipate the slippery people, and monitoring to detect when there has been a problem, and the processes in place to respond and recover quickly and effectively when it does. It's about taking a layered approach that doesn't stop at your organization's perimeter and must go beyond into the supply chain. One such control, I think possibly the most crucial control of all, is identity and access management. It covers the whole life cycle, and it's critical for ensuring adhering to regulations and security standards, because it's about making sure that whoever's authorized individuals have the necessary permissions required. We won't go into all the different compliances it helps, but for GDPR it could help you with data subject access, controls by managing who has access to personal data and for what purpose. Compliance based on complicated systems and processes is doomed to failure. I want to use the example of the Gothic horror novel Picture of Dorian Gray. And although it was written in the 19th century and seemingly not that relevant to the modern IT world, it's a great cautionary tale for poor IT infrastructure. In the novel, Dorian Gray chooses to sell his soul, asking for a portrait of himself to age and fade rather than him growing old and fading. And in this sense, this reflects our horrific systems and processes. I like the painting getting uglier and hidden away in the basement, whilst we attempt to portray ourselves as the beautiful Dorian Gray to the outside world. Audit outcomes simply reflect your mess and are a mirror of your own madness. Get your documentation, your processes and your systems in shape, and then compliance will naturally follow. A lack of or complicated processes contribute to negative audit outcomes and poor business efficiency. And when processes are complicated, people will bypass them simply to get their job done. But this causes more security issues and more compliance consequences. Having many poorly implemented controls is not better than having a few solid ones, and tracking thousands of risks that you can't mitigate doesn't help any more than solving the 10 key risks that you can fix. There's always this idea that we'll miss something if we don't try and cover everything, but you're probably missing things already. You just don't notice it, or the extra noise that you make means you can't see the wood for the trees. The biggest obstacle to cyber resilience is complexity of IT infrastructure. The more complex an organization's infrastructure is, the harder it is to maintain resilience, because you have more unnecessary failure points. By simplifying your architecture and minimizing attack surfaces, you can improve your ability to prevent, detect and respond whilst achieving and maintaining compliance. Think of it like a kitchen. You'll be asked for a meal, for example, an omelette. A good chef has the ingredients ready, the eggs, the milk, the onions, the cheese, and the necessary equipment to cook with. The regulations are the core ingredient. Regulations change, but the core ingredients stay the same, and you can make small changes to the recipe add a tomato, use a blender, whatever. But it's all about preparation. The ingredients, the controls, and the evidence, the process, the recipe, the menu is the audit scope. The core audit questions and answers usually stay the same, but you can make variations on the same theme. You have the base ingredients, and you just need to serve up those variations meal to whoever asks. You just need to get your kitchen in order first, and then you're cooking on gas, ideally without burning down the house. I just want to talk a little bit quickly about the role of systems and technology to enable better compliance. Technology creates risks, but it also is a key driver for achieving compliance. Implementing compliance management software, GRC tools, can help you automate tasks like data collection and reporting, minimizing manual efforts and streamlining processes. Technology will also help you manage multiple frameworks, has capacity to continually monitor and be proactive. But technology solutions will only help if you simplify your processes and your infrastructure, otherwise you're simply automating a mess, leading to a faster mess. And GRC solutions, they don't work out of the box despite what salespeople will tell you. You still need a human to adapt them and to maintain them and interpret the outcomes. So just finally, really, compliance is not a one-time effort. Compliance isn't static. The regulations are changing, as are the threats. And even if you are compliant to a particular certification or regulation, you have to show noticeable improvement in order to recertify and maintain that compliance. So this requires ongoing assessment and adjustment in order to stay ahead of the vulnerabilities and the changes. And it requires proactivity and continual improvement. So in conclusion, stop viewing compliance as a mere checklist dictated by external authorities. Understand the requirements and integrate them into a cohesive, proactive, strategic framework. It's not if, but when, so be prepared. Adopt an effective, layered, defense-in-depth approach that makes you more responsive and resilient. Compliance is not a once-in-a-lifetime event, so regularly review your cybersecurity measures and practices. Remember, the goal of cyber risk management is not to achieve perfection, but to be aware of your weaknesses and strengthen them. Efficient processes means less time and valuable resources wasted, plus it's easier to audit, demonstrating compliance much easier. Invest the time in the early stages because this saves complexity and issues downstream. And overall, be transparent, proactive, work with your auditors, don't be tense and nervous, relax, stay positive.